Welcome to the Black Box App Podcast. I'm your host, Kenneth L. Johnson, founder and developer of the Black Box App, and also founder of East Coast Executives, the diversity recruitment leader. I'm excited today because we have a gentleman that I have a great deal of respect for. His work speaks for itself. We have Dr. Ryan C. Warner. He's a globally recognized speaker, award-winning psychologist, and esteemed military veteran. As the CEO of RC Warner Consulting, he strengthens organizational performance by boosting inclusion and mental wellness in the workplace for high-performing organizations. Dr. Warner, welcome to the show, my friend.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Kent. I'm glad to be here.
Man, we're glad to have you. You know what? We've been on a doctor roll, man. I think our last three guests have had that designation. So that's an amazing thing in itself. So thank you so very much for just sharing your time with us today. I sincerely appreciate it. Look, let our audience know what it is, who you are, what it is that you do, and then we'll kind of just get into a conversation.
Yeah, so my name is Ryan Warner. I'm a consulting psychologist, keynote speaker, executive coach, a military veteran, father, husband, and I'm really passionate about improving inclusion and wellness within workplaces to maximize their organizational effectiveness and performance. And currently I'm located in Houston, Texas area. And I own a consulting company. We work with organizations across the globe. A lot of my work stems on executive coaching, working with high-level leaders, leadership development, keynote speaking, training, workshop facilitation, and management consulting projects. So really passionate about everything that I do and really want to use my voice to make a difference in workplaces so that all employees thrive.
Well, commendable goal there. I want to take it back a little to something you shared. So your military experience, was it straight out of high school?
Nope. So I went through all of my education back to back to back. So after high school, I went to seek my bachelor's degree in community health from the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign.
Okay.
Then immediately after that, I was like, hey, I didn't know really what I wanted to do in life. So I was like, hey, let's keep going to school. Got another full fellowship, went to seek a master's degree in rehabilitation psychology from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And then after that, I was like, hey, I think I want to be a psychologist. So then after that, I was able to get another full fellowship and then go to seek my Ph.D. at Marquette University in counseling psychology. And then during my internship, my last year, my program, I was active duty in the military and did 3 years after graduation.
You said that's amazing. What branch?
United States Air Force.
Okay, makes sense. So, all right, walk me through this a little here. You got these fellowships. Where were you getting your feedback? Who was serving as a mentor? Did you have one?
Yeah, so I always had at least one strong mentor throughout my various stages. And that was actually how I, became successful and how I was able to get to where I am today. It was those individuals who were guiding me, who were just planting that seed. Hey, have you thought about this? Hey, maybe you should consider this, right? And in turn, that helped me do my own research and identify what was the best route for myself. But if it wasn't them planting the seed, I'm not sure, where I would be right now. So that mentorship was essential in guiding my success.
Yeah, that's always I guess just as a recruiter, and I've been doing this work for 20 plus years, and I always speak to people about their career paths. And typically someone kind of introduced them to something that maybe they didn't know about, and that's the direction they go in. And it's so interesting because now my whole thought process to that type of mentoring, especially with younger kids, I'm always like, the job they want might not even exist right now. Like we might be steering them into something that's a dead career path. So I'm always mindful of that. But it looks like you had some people that not only kind of pointed you in the right direction, but then you've leveraged your educational, I guess, communities to grow and to continue to grow and navigate those spaces. Is that correct?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So all right. So tell me how you got into where you're at now. So you have your own consulting firm, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So how'd that come about? When did you say, you know what, I want to go out and do this on my own?
So it actually started during my military career. So I was a military psychologist, and specifically, I was the director of psychological health And it was my job to promote psychological wellness across the entire Air Force installation, which had about 20,000 individuals. And so I would go out into units. I would do various speaking engagements and briefs, as what we call in the military, to ultimately provide like mental health tidbits to give them strategies to improve their mental well-being in like a non-clinical setting. And I recognized that people really took a liking to what I was saying and how I was communicating the information. And it really like destigmatized mental health. They recognized that, oh, talking about, mental wellness is not so bad, right? And in turn, I recognize this connection between wellness and diversity, equity, inclusion in the workplace. Individuals, especially people of color, would come to me in the hospital setting. And they would say, "Hey, Dr. Warner, I need to, I feel really depressed. And I feel depressed because I'm experiencing a lot of racial stress in the workplace. And I don't feel supported by my leaders, right? And I saw that connection between microaggressions and racial stress and not feeling that they belong in the workplace and mental health symptomology. So in 2020, I started my own consulting business, and it just started like a part-time side gig. I would do speaking engagements and trainings and facilitation in the community. And in turn, it would grow and grow. And then I started to hire full-time staff,
Okay.
and they would have to do that work for me when I was at my 9 to 5. And then I was like, I can't really manage both of this. And I'm really passionate about the consulting piece. So I made that transition out of the military. And yeah, now I'm in a full-time capacity, really continuing to grow the organization and, expand our reach across the world. So that's just been my transition.
This is why these conversations are so interesting to me. Initially, when you spoke about the work you do as a psychologist and in a military background, the first thing I ran to was a different type of trauma. You know, I'm thinking, listen, someone has an injury, they may have lost a limb, they're struggling, and they need to speak to you,
Mhm.
right? And they need to consistently kind of just be in a place where they're kind of understanding themselves and learning. And then you come and you share that quite a bit of the work is really around the workplace in general,
Mhm.
and how people are being welcomed, not welcome, perceived, just dealt with within that sphere. And I just think that's really interesting. I had that completely pegged wrong.
Well, yeah, I mean, I definitely did work with those who experienced, PTSD and trauma, et cetera. But a lot of the concerns were just, hey, I have a lot of work stress, or hey, I don't like being in the military. I want to get out, right? Or hey, I don't feel supported, or hey, I just lost a loved one in my life, right? So it varied. But definitely, I'll say a lot of people who came to me because I was one of the few psychologists of color there, and they wanted to talk to somebody who looked like them, So, and I noticed specifically when working with that population, they talked about experiencing a lot of racial stress in the workplace. Yeah.
Yeah, no different than someone that's in a more traditional corporate
Mhm.
environment. You hear a lot of that, and people have to find ways to deal with it. But oftentimes, I think people really don't know where to go.
Mhm.
So how did you find that in that workplace? Like, were people finding you because you were actively out speaking, doing the things that you do, or were they being sent to you maybe by, you know, peers or superiors?
It was both, but I'll say majority, it was like, hey, they knew me, they feel comfortable because I was out and about in the
Sure.
work. I was showing my face. I was, at the gate with the police officers, right? I was, going around passing out candy, right, to the firefighters. So I was,
Yeah.
out there, in that visibility piece, they feel more comfortable. I established that trust.
Yeah, I can tell you have the personality for that you would be out there and moving around and getting to know and connect with people. So speaking about connecting with people, I always like to tap in to see where people's passion is as it relates to supporting, I guess, underrepresented talent that's coming into the workplace or talent in general. I just, what type of advice do you have if someone's looking to pursue maybe not even the consulting side of your career, but if they're looking to become a psychologist, like what do you think? What advice do you have to somebody that's just starting that educational journey?
So I would say you have to take a multifaceted type of approach. So you have to look intrapersonally within yourself and also take a interpersonal perspective. So
Okay.
for instance, intrapersonally, why do you want to do this work? Well, I often hear, hey, I want to help people. Okay, well, why? How does that attach with your purpose and what you're really excited about in your interests? Okay, so you have to look within yourself and do that deep reflection. You also have to take an interpersonal perspective. Hey, what connections, what networks, what people do you know that you can connect with so you can learn more about that field and what it takes, to get where you want to be. Right?
Yeah.
How can you shadow them? How can you hear their perspectives? How can you get some advice? Right. So establish those interpersonal connections is also essential. So if you're able to take both of those approaches, then you're going to definitely be successful.
Speaking of taking a dual approach, man, I'd love to just hear your thoughts on your responsibilities daily as an entrepreneur and your responsibilities when you were kind of working a more traditional career line. What's that change been like for you? I think you said 2000. You kind of walked out and started doing your own
No,
thing.
2020.
Okay, 2020. I'm sorry, 2020. Yeah.
Yeah, 2000 and 2000s I was very but yeah, 2020, yeah, I started part-time and I guess the difference between, a traditional 9 to 5, the military is obviously a little bit different than obviously a 9 to 5. But I had a schedule. Hey, I came in, I knew exactly what I need to do. Entrepreneurship, I do whatever I want to do, and there's no clock out time or clock in time,
Yeah.
so sometimes people try to be entrepreneurs because hey, I want freedom, right? Recognizing though that sometimes you put a lot more hours, especially at the beginning, and starting your own business than, a traditional job, right? At the end, it definitely does pay off once you learn to scale, et cetera. But I have to establish more boundaries in my business. I have to take quote unquote PTO time. I have to take a couple of weeks off a year. I have to, set that time up for myself so I don't get burned out, so I can spend time with my family and, just maximize my overall wellness as well.
Speaking of your overall wellness, now do you use time management tools? Is there any specific tool that maybe you can share with others and you say, hey, this has actually really helped me manage my calendar? Because as an entrepreneur, you're right. Like I was up last night at 2 a.m. still doing things. I don't want to make that the rule, but you were speaking about side hustles and things of that nature. I've just bit off so much that sometimes it doesn't seem like I have the time. What are you doing to manage your time?
Yeah. Recognize time is the only thing we can't get back. We can get back money, we can, get back resources, but time is one thing. All of us, doesn't matter how much money we have or we don't have. I mean, we cannot get back time, right? So prioritizing, what is most important to you, right? And creating that schedule for yourself is essential. So, I run my business like a, traditional 9 to 5 as much as possible.
Okay.
Even though I may work a little bit outside of those hours, I try to stick with it. I always establish, some time for myself and my family as well. And I know once my 2.5-year-old gets home, then my work is done. I couldn't do
Yeah,
work if I wanted to, so
I
that's
understand
the
that.
time for my family, and that cutoff time, right?
All right.
So again, establish that boundary is essential.
So speaking of establishing boundaries, so when you look at people that are just kind of getting their feet under them in their career, they're kind of mid-career level, and they're kind of finding their way around, starting families, things of that nature. Any advice you have to those individuals that are just maybe feeling like their career is unfulfilling and they need to kind of readjust and maybe take a look? What advice do you have for them?
Yeah, well, don't be scared to reach out, and strengthen that professional network, right? We can't do everything on our own, right? So I think there's a time in which we all have to recognize, hey, when do I need to either outsource or when do I need to reach out to others to, walk through some of my ideas that I have or to get new ideas, right? Or pick their brains. So establishing that connection, nowadays is, fairly easy. I mean, go on LinkedIn, send some direct messages, try to meet with people, right? Join organizations, get out there in the community. So there's different ways to, strengthen that relationship with others and being proactive
Okay.
is important.
Yeah, well, we met on LinkedIn, so there you go, right? There's the value in that. I'm looking at the wall behind you, and I can tell the professional development is just really important and core to who you are, it looks like. And just your background and success would indicate that as well. Um, any books that you keep close to heart and you think they've added value to your career aspirations that you'd like to share with the audience?
Well, you see the book behind me. So Simon Sinek's Start With Why.
Mm,
I love that book just because purpose guides everything that I do, and we
okay,
have to have a why, right? And this book just helps you find that why, helps you identify, what that that direction, is that you want to go towards, and recognize that it's all a journey. It's not a destination, right? So we're always learning, we're always growing, no matter how senior we are, in our particular roles or experiences. I'll definitely recommend that.
great. I want to tap back into the mental wellness side of your experience. Um, I've been hearing a lot of people speak about the importance of meditation and things of that nature. Like, is that something that you practice? You see, you have a very calming spirit, and I don't know if it's that you're clinically trained to kind of know how to be level, but like, what works for you?
So, I mean, I've tried meditation. Not something I personally do on a daily basis. But I think, I teach a lot of individuals about there's two ways that you approach wellness. There's the behavioral aspects and there's like psychological, approach. So behaviorally, we know, hey, going to the gym, working out, spending time with loved ones, doing activities we enjoy, all of that behaviorally is going to help improve our overall wellness. But also we have to take a psychological approach as well. How do we challenge our self-limiting beliefs? How do we enhance our perspectives, and try to create more cognitive flexibility, right? When things don't go our way,
Sure.
right? So being able to take both of those approaches, behaviorally and psychologically, I just try to practice those skills,
Okay.
uh, and in turn, that helps improve my overall wellness.
Excellent. Your success indicates to me that you're extremely goal oriented. Is there a goal process for you? And was there a process when you were, younger? Just like that you sat down and kind of set that out? I know you said you had some mentors that kind of guided you, but man, your accomplishments speak to somebody that's highly motivated.
Mhm. I would say at the beginning, like I'll say my bachelor's, degree, my goal was I just looked like right in front of me, like, hey, let's get A's in all my classes. That's what I was concerned about, right? And I'll say in school, I was so focused on the academic side, I didn't really think about the big picture. Hey, where do I want to go in the future, right? But now I'm looking at more of the big picture. Hey, where do I see my business in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, right? Well, what impact do I want to make in the world, right? So now I'm thinking more in that regard, or just as an early career professional.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Just from the standpoint of this is the time for you to start thinking, all right, what's it look like 5 years? What's it look like 10 years? I can appreciate you saying you kind of were head down, hitting the books like I'm going to deal with this semester right now and get
Yeah.
through that and grab all A's. So yeah, I can definitely appreciate that process. Um, so as you kind of move out here in the spaces, and you spoke about networking and how important that was for you. So is that also one of the reasons why you're so passionate about your speaking career? Let's talk a little bit about that.
So speaking did not come naturally to me. If you met me like in high school, I was always scared to get in front of the class. But I would say in my master's and my PhD program, that's when I recognized that I had something important to say, and people really gravitated to the words that came out of my mouth. I remember I did like a 3-minute thesis competition. So you have 3 minutes to talk about your dissertation
Okay.
research. And dissertation, I could talk hours about my dissertation. But it challenged me to in 3 minutes, how can I convey something in a succinct way that's going to make a difference? And in turn, I came runner up in that competition, and it was a very competitive competition. Everyone at Marquette University who was a graduate student was able to participate. And um, when I got runner up, I was like, hey, I think if I keep practicing at this, I can be pretty good, when
Sure.
it comes to speaking. And then I recognized that, oh, I can make a living as a speaker as well, right? So so with that, I mean, I was like, hey, how can I continue to improve? How can I get more experience? And yeah, in turn, now I speak across the globe. So
So as far as improving, like, did you participate in Toastmasters or anything like that? Did you do any of those things?
yep, I did
Okay.
Toastmasters. I've constantly just sought out opportunities to refine my talks and my workshops. Uh, Tried to get additional feedback and continue to get feedback to continue to improve. I mean, tomorrow I'm going to a conference. I'm doing another talk. So I constantly engage in different experiences that's gonna continue to refine my skills and spread that word to the audience to make a difference.
Yeah, I think sometimes you find that people just want to be in front of an audience and talk, but I think if they can tie a straight mission and
Mhm.
align it with that conversation every time they're out, you'll find that they'll get much better, but also they'll just start walking in that space, their passion space. And when you see it, it's so empowering because they literally are just getting up and sharing and focusing on storytelling. Let's talk a little bit about storytelling, if you don't mind. So it's a
Sure.
big thing now, and people talk about it as far as their careers are concerned. Um, what's the storytelling piece for mental wellness? Like, how do people? Is that something where you just I would imagine people aren't comfortable just coming in and dropping everything on your plate. So like there has to be a story, a journey to that. Can you talk a little bit about that as an experience?
Definitely. So in a clinical setting, when you talk about storytelling, so I work with in private practice, I work with a lot of people of color, mostly high performing professionals that come to me that just want to improve their overall mental wellness. And I always start with, hey, tell me if you were writing your own autobiography, like where would you start? What would be
Okay.
chapter one?
Mm,
Right. And as they tell their story, hey, I grew up in this household and I experienced this as a child, and then I'm able to help them enhance the reflection. Because sometimes we don't really tell our own story, right? Unless it's an intentional like platform that that's asking us to tell our story. But reflecting on our past experiences, we're able to make that connection with how we respond now as an adult. So sometimes we think about how's a house built, right? It's built off of a foundation. If that foundation is kind of, not stable, then as an adult, that's still going to impact us, right? If
yes.
we don't become aware of it and shift our behaviors and our thought patterns. So, storytelling can be really powerful, engaging in that self-disclosure, that vulnerability, to in turn not only just learn about yourself, but identify what shifts do you have to make, to cope in the optimal way.
Yeah, yeah. So when what's your style to your public speaking style? Are you I guess, are you a person that comes and like kind of lays out facts, or are you a person that kind of tells a story and walks people through?
So it's both. So I
Okay.
always start with a story though. I always
Yeah.
gauge in self-disclosure. I do a lot of speaking engagement. Actually, my most popular talk is microaggressions within the workplace.
Okay.
And so I talk about microaggressions, which are subtle, covert forms of discrimination directed towards people of color and those who identify as, in a marginalized status. And ultimately, I talk about a lot of my experiencing going through microaggressions, right? As a young Black male, throughout my academic experiences, going to predominantly white institutions, and that in turn, that vulnerability helps bring in the audience, helps promote engagement, and in turn allows them to reflect on their experiences as well.
Yeah.
So always engage in self-disclosure and storytelling to engage that audience throughout my talks.
Well, you've definitely engaged us today, man. I appreciate you coming on the Black Box App podcast to tell just a piece of your story. Continued success to you as you navigate these waters, man. I'm so just happy and proud that we've came across each other's paths because I think people like you are the ones that really need to be known and amplified. So I wish you much success in your speaking career and moving forward. Let our audience know how they can stay connected to you and your work.
Yeah, definitely. So you can follow me on social media at Dr. Ryan C. Warner. Add me on LinkedIn at Ryan C. Warner, PhD. Uh, Go to my website at www.rcwarnerconsulting.com. You can also just Google my name, Dr. Ryan C. Warner, and my information will come up. So please feel free to reach out and say you heard me in this podcast, and I'll be happy to connect.